Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm going to be doing a Voiceless voice deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is the new tier 1 ritual deck that we just got out of Phantom Nightmare. It's super fun to be able to play to turbo out your copy of Skull Guardian to be able to control the board and go in for game. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name scratched in every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice. This card is an amazing boss monster. It's actually based on an old school ritual monster, Skull Guardian. But this card has the ability to ritual summon this card with Prayers of the Voiceless Voice, and it gains 2,050 attack points while you have a copy of Lo, the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice on your field or in your graveyard, boosting this card up to 4,100, which is massive. It also has a really cool ability. If this card is ritual summon, you can add a Voiceless Voice monster or a ritual monster that's a warrior or a dragon from your deck to your hand. And when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control a copy of Lo, the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card, which is such a cool ability. And this card basically does everything. It's a searcher, it's a walking negate, and it's absolutely massive, and it's super easy to summon. This card basically checks all the boxes for what a good boss monster needs to be. We then play 2 copies of Sarvis. Sarvis is really good in this deck as a 2-of because this card is not only a hand trap but a really good monster to actually put on our side of the field. That when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a monster you control, quick effect, you can discard this card to negate the activation. And when your opponent would special summon a monster, quick effect, you can return this card back to your hand to negate the special summon, and if you do, banish that monster, which is really insane. This card basically is a 2-of in the build because it's super easy to get to, but it's a definite 2-of in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Lo, Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. This card is so important as a 3-of in the build because this card can be used as the entire tribute for a light ritual monster that's a warrior or a dragon, which is so cool. And if this card is normal or special summoned, you can place a Voiceless Voice continuous spell or trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap card zone. And if a light ritual monster that's a warrior or dragon is special summoned to your field while this card's in the graveyard, you can actually special summon this card back to your side of the field, which is amazing, so you can give your copy of Skull Guardian its bonus negate, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Saphira, Dragon Queen of the Voiceless Voice. This card is also extremely important for combo in this deck, and has the ability you can discard this card to send a ritual spell from your deck to the graveyard, then add a light ritual monster that's a warrior or a dragon from your deck to your hand. You can also banish this card in the graveyard to ritual summon a light ritual monster that's a warrior or dragon from your hand by tributing monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster that you're attempting to ritual summon, basically being a ritual spell in monster form, which is so cool. This card is definitely a 3-of in the deck and is one of the most important cards for your combos. We then play a single copy of Sarvis, Dragon Sage of the Voiceless Voice. You really only need a single copy of this card, but it's still a great card in the deck because it has the ability you can special summon this card from your hand by shuffling 2 spells from your hand or graveyard into your deck, including a ritual spell, which is a pretty cool ability just to get this card out on your side of the field. And when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you return this card from the field back to your hand to special summon a light ritual monster that's a warrior or dragon from your hand or deck, but shuffle it into the deck during the end phase of the next turn, helping you summon out your copy of the Sarvis to your side of the field, which is great. We then play 3 copies of Diviner of the Heralds. Diviner is great because we play a lot of different targets in the deck and the extra deck that you can actually use with this card, and it also has a really cool ability that if it's tributed, you can special summon a level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or deck, which is really cool because our copy of Lo is actually a fairy. Meaning if you do normal summon out your copy of Diviner, it makes Diviner actually the best normal summon in the entire deck because you can actually put on your side of the field a copy of Trias, which is a really cool card to be able to normal summon out your copy of Herald, send Trias, Trias will tribute Diviner, summon out your copy of Lo, then Lowe's ability will go off, which is so cool. I love that about this strategy with this deck, that it incorporates Diviner of the Heralds, which is such a cool card, and actually makes Diviner the best normal summon in the entire build, getting you the maximum field that you can get in this deck, which is really cool. This card is really important for the deck, and you really need at least one copy of Trias, probably just one in the deck, because you don't want to open it up, but it's still really good in the build, giving you basically 6 really good normal summons in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is definitely a 3-of in the build, just to stop the opponent from touching the deck. We also play 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird is amazing in this build, just to stop your opponent from searching for the rest of the turn. We then play 3 copies of Nibiru. Nibiru is insane in this deck as a 3-of, just to basically break your opponent's board and make sure that they're not going to establish a crazy powerful board, so we can just deal with them on the follow-up. But this card is great at breaking their opponent's board. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start off with a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a really good 1-of in the deck, just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you while you're going in for all of your plays. We then play 2 copies of Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. This card is definitely a 2-of in the build. You really don't need 3 copies of this card, but it has a really cool ability that you can use this card to ritual summon any light ritual monster, and you must also tribute light monsters from your hand or field whose total level equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you're trying to ritual summon. But if you're using your copy of Low, you can count that card as the entire tribute because of Low's ability. But this card also has the ability if a face-up light ritual monster you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, except during the damage step, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 copy of Sarvis, Saphira, or Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice from your hand or deck, ignoring their summoning conditions, which is great because this card actually mentions the ritual monsters by name on this card, making it super easy to search them out with your copy of Pre-Preparation of Rites, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Barrier of the Voiceless Voice. Barrier of the Voiceless Voice is definitely a 3-of in the build, as when you control a copy of Lo, the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice, and a light ritual monster, your opponent's monsters can only target ritual monsters for attacks, meaning they have to attack into your copy of, say, Skull Guardian, which is a card you're usually going to have. Also, your opponent cannot target light monsters you control with card effects, giving you even more protection for your copy of Skull Guardian. And during your main phase, you can during your main phase, you can add a Voiceless Voice card or a Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice, ritual monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of this card, which is a great ability to be able to use this card. This card is definitely a 3-of and a card you're usually placing on your side of the field with your copy of Lo. We then play 3 copies of Pre-Preparation of Rites. Pre-prep is really good to be able to work with a copy of Prayers and our copies of our Protector of the Voiceless Voice, Skull Guardian, because it's specifically mentioned on Prayers of the Voiceless Voice, giving us the ability to search it off of Pre-Preparation of Rites, because it lets us add a ritual spell from our deck to our hand, then add a ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, whose name is listed on the ritual spell, which it is with our copy of Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity is great in this deck because we really don't need the extra deck all that much. So this card is really good to be able to play, to be able to dig into the extra deck or dig into the deck by banishing cards from our extra deck so that we can get to the exact cards that we need, because we really want to get to Diviner or Low so we can start our plays really rolling. We then play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Super Poly is just really good in this deck to break our opponent's board, because we want to be able to break our opponent's board and just go in for game with our copy of Skull Guardian, because it's such a powerful card, and I really like main decking this card in this build to basically just break our opponent's board so we can go in. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing a single copy of Radiance of the Voiceless Voice. This card is great in the deck as a 1-of, because during the main phase, you can activate one of these effects that shuffle a light ritual monster, warrior dragon, or a ritual spell from your hand or graveyard into the deck. Then, and if you do, add to your hand or special summon 1 Voiceless Voice monster from your deck. Or it has the ability to target cards your opponent controls up to the number of light ritual monsters, warrior dragon you control, and destroy both this card and as many of the targets as possible, which is insane. This card is so cool in the deck, helps you deal with cards, gets monsters out on your side of the field, and also recycles your resources, which is just so cool. This card is definitely a one-up in the build, but you really only need a single copy. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Dynamundo. Dynamundo is probably the most important card in the entire extract, with the ability that takes 2 monsters, including a ritual monster, to make this card. And if this card is special summoned, you can target 1 card on the field and a ritual monster in the grave and shuffle both into the deck, which is super cool, letting you bounce cards off the field with recycling resources. And during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can tribute this card and then target a ritual monster in the graveyard and either add it to your hand or special summon it. We then play a single copy of the Dark Charmer and a single copy of the Light Charmer. These cards are just really good at bringing cards back from your opponent's graveyard, and also they're just good options in the deck. We then play a single copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is really good in the build if you have it. If you don't, you can change it out for something else, which is just really cool to be able to do in this build, like a copy of, say, Nightmare Unicorn if you want a more budget option. But if you have it, play it because it is a double interruption. We then play a single copy of Link Haribo because you do play level 1s in the deck, so this card is a great card to be able to play in the build. We also play a single copy of Relinquished Anima. Relinquished Anima is great because it helps us gobble up opponents' monsters to get them out of the way so we can OTK. We then play for our super poly targets. We're playing a single copy of Grua, a single copy of Mud Dragon, and a single copy of the Earth Golem ad Ignister. These are just basically really good cards to be able to use as super poly targets. And another budget option, if you want to, instead of SP Little Knight, is you can play another super poly target like a copy of, say, Dracos Tapalia or Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, are other options for budget options for that SP Little Knight. We then play a single copy of Elder Entity Nest. Elder Entity Nest is just a good card to be able to send to the graveyard off a Diviner, just in case you want to pop a card on the field. We'll play a single copy of Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel is great in this deck. It's so easy to make with your Diviner plays, and it's just a really cool card because if you just use light monsters to make this card, then synchro monsters you control are unaffected by monster effects activated by your opponent, and its spot removes a card off the field. And this card next to Skull Guardian, your opponent's probably going to lose. We then play a single copy of Herald of the Arclight because if it does touch the graveyard, it does have the ability to add a ritual monster, ritual spell to your hand, which is great to be able to use with your copy of your Diviner. We then play a single copy of Typhon. Typhon's great in this deck as a one-up because it's very easy to make. You don't make it all that often. It's just kind of an, oh, I need this card kind of option, but it's really good because you can make it in just about any deck. We then finally play a single copy of Zeus because you can make Zeus in the deck every so often just in case you need to off your copy of Typhon, but it's a really good card to be able to make in this build to be able to break boards. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is really fun to be able to play. I absolutely love Voiceless Voice. It's a deck I'm going to be playing a lot this format, and it's really, really fun. Being able to summon out Skull Guardian is so cool because it's based on an old school ritual monster, which is absolutely crazy. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.